Okay, we're here with Michelle from Blacktooth Brewery out of, where is it, Sheridan, Wyoming? Is that right?
Yeah, Sheridan, Wyoming is where the production facility is. We actually have a new second location now in Cheyenne also.
Oh, cool. So we like to do this for our beer club, and we were talking to Michelle earlier, kind of just go through maybe where she came into the beer world from and how she ended up at Blacktooth and that. So start with that. Maybe Michelle, tell us a little of your story, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually come from the music world. I started out as my intention was to be an opera singer, and I did actually do that for a little while in Los Angeles. And during that time, I can honestly say classical music is a very stressful thing to do when you are trying to make money. It's not stressful if you don't want to make money, but it's pretty hard to make money. So I developed a brewing hobby to kind of decompress and got really into craft beer and started doing like kind of moonlighting in breweries, bartending, and kind of doing ambassador work, back office accounting kind of support. And I was living in LA and wishing I had a reason to live somewhere that had a slightly higher quality of life, a little less chaos, and little by little, I started looking at other opportunities. I went through the University of Vermont's Business of Craft Beer program, which kind of prepares you for opening a new brewery of your own, which I wanted to do about 6 or 7 years ago. I built that business plan for Sheridan, Wyoming, which is where I grew up. And I went back to Sheridan and became really good friends with the gentleman who was the head brewer at Blacktooth at the time, Travis Zalstra. And he really mentored me a lot and helped me kind of figure out, just one second. Okay, kind of helped me figure out what I could do to make that happen and how the market looked in Sheridan. But it was kind of clear at the time that the beer scene was starting to gain momentum in Wyoming, and a new brewery in such a small town, in addition to the other two that were already there, might actually be too much. So I kind of backed away from the business plan idea and started looking at other things I could do in the industry. I started getting into sales and other areas. And ultimately, I ended up moving back to Sheridan to help open a new brewery, to help a new brewery get off the ground, even though it wasn't mine, but it was someone else's. And once they kind of got off the ground, I went looking for some other broader opportunities. And I actually ended up becoming the executive director of the Wyoming Craft Brewers Guild. So that is a primary job of that's primarily what I do in Wyoming. Through the COVID nightmare, I've had to make some changes because the Guild is a nonprofit organization and we've lost a lot of money and momentum. So I'm part-time with the Guild right now, and I'm the distribution manager for Blacktooth. I've done a lot of things for Blacktooth over the years. I've always been connected to them because of my personal connection to the brewer a long time ago. I've done stuff in their tap room and some sales and events, and now I'm doing their distribution. So that's how I landed here.
That's fun. So we, as Montanans, we kind of think we're Westerners, but we really think Wyoming are Westerners even more so than Montanans. So
Yeah.
it's fun. Maybe where the name came from is that, and then the names of the beers too seem like they're heading that Western direction, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Blacktooth is like one of maybe 7 or 8 breweries that were even in the state of Wyoming when it first opened in 2010. So there wasn't very much craft beer happening in Wyoming. And they really wanted to capture the essence of the Wild West without, but still be appealing to other people around the region. So Blacktooth is actually the name of one of the higher mountain peaks in the Bighorn Mountains, just above Sheridan. And we release an anniversary beer every year called 1314, which the peak of Blacktooth is at 13,014 feet. So that's where that comes from. It's up in Cloud Peak Wilderness. It's an amazing, amazing area. And there is a guy in Sheridan who actually has done the Blacktooth to Blacktooth in one day. Like he starts at the brewery and he cycles to a certain point and then he hikes and then he climbs up to the peak and comes back. It's unreal. It's an amazing feat. So anyway, that's where the name came from. Right. And yeah, to your point, the beers also are meant to kind of capture the spirit of the West. Blacktooth's tagline is "Drink the West," and that's very intentional. Hot Streak obviously kind of captures the the gambling history we have, and Copper Mule is a great, like, it's a great mashup of a lot of different ideas. But we had, firefighters who used to pack into the mountains and camp out at the top of a peak and watch out for forest fires for over a century. That's how we did it, and so that's a really big part of our history. Obviously, Balmer Mountain, you might know Balmer Mountain is also in the Cloud Peak Wilderness, and that is where a World War II bomber plane crashed in, I can't remember what year it was, but it was lost off the radar. Nobody knew what happened to it. And a farmer saw a glimmer of light one day and hiked up the mountain and found this wreckage of a plane. And they finally found this poor pilot's remains after, this was in the 70s, after 30 years of being lost to his family. So it's a very, very famous site, and you can still hike up there and see the wreckage. And then the other one you have there is obviously Saddle Bronc, which pretty much explains itself. And that's our top selling beer. We sell more Saddle Bronc than anything. It is a wildly successful brand and very highly awarded as well.
Nice. Well, I'm sorry that you can't drink along with us. We're not drinking, we're tasting, but anyway.
Okay. Yes. Well, I will taste with you in spirit.
All right. So we're gonna maybe Tara just said, well, we should ask how Saddle Tooth or Blacktooth got started. I mean, what?
Yeah.
Was it the same thing, kind of a home brewer gone nuts, or what happened?
Yeah, it often is a home brewer gone nuts, right? Actually, no, it's a little bit different type of story, but it's still got a lot of the same elements that most small breweries do. It's co-founded by a gentleman named Tim Barnes, who is a Sheridan native and whose family owned a lot of different businesses in Sheridan. They're really involved in Sheridan's business history. And Travis Zelstra, who actually is a Montana native. He comes from Billings. And Travis is a culinary chef. He's a brilliant chef and came from, I believe, don't quote me on this, I might be wrong. I'm not going to say because I don't know what brewery he came from and I don't want to say the wrong one. But he came from a brewery in Montana, and he was actually awarded Small Brewer of the Year by the Great American Beer Festival a number of years before he founded Blacktooth. So he came on the scene as kind of a rock star, and I think was looking for a really nice town to move his family to raise his kids, and really liked Sheridan. So the two of them founded it in 2010. They were looking for something to, a business that kind of built the community, that gave back to the community. And as we know, craft breweries do that really beautifully. It's such a great business for that effort. So they built a 10-barrel system and a kind of small, they converted an old Chevrolet showroom into their tap room. They had a little 10-barrel system in there, and they just went gangbusters all of a sudden. I think they didn't realize how much velocity the brand was going to have in the region. And within a couple years, 2-3 years probably, they were running out of room. They didn't have the ability to meet the demand they had. And they'd won a lot of awards. They'd won, their wheat, bag-in-box wheat had won a gold at the World Beer Cup and a gold at the JBF. They didn't realize how good things were going. So they went ahead and did a huge expansion. They purchased the back of the building, which used to be an old Chevrolet like mechanic service area, and built a brand new 30-barrel Sprinkman system with 120 barrel fermenter tanks, and they redid the whole system. It's absolutely beautiful. If anybody ever comes down to Sheridan and you want to take a look, be sure to let us know beforehand, and we'd love to show you around. We'd love to show it off. Very proud of the system. Put in a canning line and started and totally rebranded. So the brand that you see is a brand refresh from the initial brand. If you Google it, it's a really old, like it's a very classic, early craft brewery brand. So the intention was to spread out into a lot of different markets, to go into South Dakota and Colorado and Idaho and Montana and Utah, Nebraska. And they did for a while. They did kind of go gangbusters out in these other markets. But as you probably know, and certainly as your members know, the craft beer bubble kind of like just flattened slightly around 2016-ish, 16 or 17. And what we thought was going to look like this actually looked a little bit like this. And people kind of realized, oh, they're going to have to scale back a little bit. And we saw a lot of breweries pulling out of bigger markets. So Blacktooth is no exception. They pulled out of eastern South Dakota and some other like further away regions and started focusing heavily on the states bordering Wyoming, the closer areas of Wyoming. So they still produce right around 9,000 barrels a year, and they distribute all over Wyoming. They're the #1 distributed brand in Wyoming that produces Wyoming beer. Utah, no, sorry, not Utah, South Dakota, Montana, Nebraska, and Wyoming. And we have a couple markets in those states that are just really hot and vivid, and a couple that are much more subdued because of the other regional craft breweries around. But generally, Blacktooth does just really, really well in the region. It's a recognizable brand. People respect it. They win awards almost every year. There's still that Amber won a silver at GABF last year. There's still the same beer is still winning awards. It's a really they're doing really well. And now they have a second location in Cheyenne. And I think this kind of second taproom model is something a lot of breweries are looking at because it is a much higher profit margin than distribution. And we are kind of going back to our roots as an industry of serving our community and getting as local as possible. So they've done, I think, really well in the region. And they're still going.
Well, we're excited to taste. We might as well start. So Copper Mule is the one you wanted to do first, right?
Yeah, I think so. I like to start with the lightest beer possible in terms of how it affects your palate. So Copper Mule is really basic cream ale. It's meant to be, we brewed it as a seasonal, just as like a fun summer seasonal cream ale with lime and ginger. And the ginger is actually grated by hand and thrown into the process at the right time. So it's meant to be very fresh and fruity. We brewed it as a seasonal a number of years ago, and it was so wildly popular that we added it to our flagship lineup at the time. It's gotten a little less popular over the years because so many other breweries are doing some kind of lime offering. In this region, as we all know, Bud Light Lime is popular, and we have to find a way to compete with these things. So Copper Mule, the cream ale is what we call lawnmower beer, really simple malt structure, and very, very lightly hopped, really just in order to balance out the malt. And then with the addition of lime and ginger, you get a little extra refreshing kick on the back of your palate that helps induce more thirst and refreshment, kind of like a sour.
Yeah, that's what I said when I first tasted it. It has a little bit of the sour flavor to it, but
yeah,
anyway, it's really refreshing and nice. It'd be a great, like you said, summer beer. So,
yeah, we have a Thai truck that comes to the brewery a couple times a week, and it's kind of our magical pairing. Copper Mule is magical with a lot of different kinds of Thai food.
I'll bet. Yeah.
Any kind of basil or peanut base is going to be pretty delightful with Copper Mule.
Yeah, cool. So you wanted to do the Bomber one next?
Yeah, let's do that next.
Okay.
So Bomber Mountain, for those of you who are sticklers about styles, we call it an amber, but technically it's not a traditional American amber. Many of your members probably know that. They probably think, it's too malty to be an amber. And you will be right. It's not super hoppy. It's really more like an Irish red. Technically, that's the style that we're really emulating here. So there's a really nice biscuity, malty backbone, really light hop character. It's meant to be a sessionable, very refreshing drinking beer. So you can do this a little bit warmer temperature. You don't have to. We're American and we tend to be particular about our temperature when it comes to beer. But Irish reds, UK styles are typically served a little bit warmer. And if you do let it get into the 50-degree range, you will get a lot more out of the malt flavor. You get a lot more spiciness and more interesting things from the malt.
What's the alcohol content? Do you know? Or we can look at
I think it's 4.6. 4.6. Yeah, pretty light.
I think something like this would be great with some rich cream or rich cheese or something.
Yes, blue cheese. Yep, something really pungent. Also, even something like a cheddar, like a smoked cheddar, might bring out some of the toastiness of that malt, the roastiness of the malt.
Yeah, it's very good. All right, let's move on to the, you said this is your number one seller, the brown ale, Saddle Bronc?
Saddle Bronc Brown. Yeah, we cannot keep up with demand on this puppy. It's insane. Mostly we sell a lot of this beer in Cheyenne and Laramie, which is, Cheyenne is the home of Cheyenne Frontier Days, naturally. So the rodeo culture there is really strong. So we sell a lot there. Plus, the University of Wyoming in Laramie, their mascot is Cowboy Joe, of course. The bucking bronco is a real strong piece of our history. So people just, they buy what they are familiar with and they love it. So Saddle Bronc Brown, again, related to this style, it's not a traditional American brown ale. A typical American brown ale would have a lot more hop presence. Saddle Bronc Brown is much more like an English mild, a dark English mild. And again, when we started brewing beers, when we started building the portfolio, we were trying to appeal to a large audience of drinkers. We're trying to bring a lot of macro drinkers into the craft realm by showing them beers that were not intimidating, that were very approachable, very smooth and drinkable. And this is a great example of a beer that has done incredibly well, even though it's not a traditional American style. It's much more like a UK style. So it's spectacular in that you get some of like sort of like a coffee roasted flavor out of the dark malt. There is no coffee in the beer, but sometimes you get that out of a darker roasted malt. And again, very low hop bitterness on this beer. We're wanting to feature the roast here mainly, and low alcohol. I think this one's probably also around 5. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I can't read it. I'm too old for that. 4.8. 4.8.
There we go. Perfect. Perfect. So with the idea with session ales is that you can consume more of them in a session. And we definitely want to hit that mark with these beers. So people are,
it's really nice. Like the coffee notes and the mocha and all that, especially on the finish, it lasts for a long time in your mouth.
It does. We did a donut pairing a while back with a local donut company, and then, I know it was so hard. I felt that day, I thought, oh, I have the worst job in the world.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it paired beautifully with a maple bacon donut.
Wow, that sounds fun. We have a local people. What is it? They do chocolate covered bacon. Where is that? That's an app somewhere. I think it's Paris at P. Gibbs. I think that'd be fun with this one.
That sounds delightful. Also, I think something like pulled pork would be nice. Something rich and smoky would also bring out some of that roastiness.
Cool. This is my favorite.
So. Yeah, this is beautiful. I love it.
Good, great.
Well, let's go on to Hot Streak.
All right, Hot Streak is our flagship IPA. So when we brewed Hot Streak we first brewed it back in 2010, the IPA world was a different beast. As you all know, IPAs, the feeling of IPAs has changed so much. What you're having and what's in front of you right now is something that maybe back then would have been considered a pretty traditional Midwestern IPA. It certainly is not a West Coast IPA. It certainly is not a New England IPA. It's something kind of in the middle. So it has a lot of people I've heard describe it today much more like a pale ale. It has that really nice citrusy, bitterness, piney thing going on that was traditional in IPAs years ago. But it doesn't have the tropical aroma that we've also kind of become accustomed to and started to desire over the past few years. It's, again, meant to be really simple and really drinkable. This beer is kind of a funny beast in our profile. We don't sell a lot of it in distribution, but we sell a ton of it in our tap room. It's just a testament to IPA culture. If you go to a brewery, you're gonna order the IPA. That's just part of our culture. And we sell a ton of it in the tap rooms. But in distribution, it doesn't have as much velocity because it lacks that really aggressive hoppiness that we've kind of come to expect from West Coast IPAs and even New England IPAs in some ways. So
some of the brewers we've talked to over this past few months have talked about IPA heading back towards this type of IPA and getting less hoppiness is becoming more of the trend they're seeing. Do you see that too?
I think that's possible. I think what we're seeing in the trend with the New England and hazy IPAs is speaking to that. The New England hazy IPAs are much more aroma focused and much more flavor focused and a lot less bitterness focused. There's a lot of hop additions later on in the process, which reduce the amount of bitterness and increase the access to aromatics and flavor. And that is the popularity of that is proving what those brewers are saying. a West Coast style IPA of the really big malt bomb, in addition to heavy early hop additions, the bitterness that just takes everything out of your mouth, that is starting to decline slightly. I think there's still a really strong market for that among craft enthusiasts, but when it comes to people who are not necessarily drinking craft, maybe once in a while they're buying a craft beer, they're not buying that. So in order to maintain the popular, like the broad appeal of the craft industry, I think we are going in that direction. So we'll see. We've talked about making changes to Hot Streak over the years. You know, should we adapt it to what's going on, or should we just leave it and put new beers in the portfolio? And that's probably what we're going to do. We do have a hazy IPA. We have 2 different hazy IPAs in our seasonal roundup. And then we also have like a summer fruited ale that sometimes gets heavily hopped too. So that seems to be the way a lot of brewers are trying to handle that trend.
Yeah, cool. Well, they're all very enjoyable, but I'm with Tara. I think if I was going to have more today, which I'm not, I'd probably go back to the brown ale. It's really nice.
So. Good. I'm so glad you like it.
Well, thanks for your time. You got anything else you want to add, or Tara?
We always ask what you're drinking if you're not drinking beer.
Oh yeah.
Kind of wine.
Okay. For your question, so it's like 12:30 here. I'm sure we'll be drinking beer soon, but I just bought, because in Wyoming I don't have access to a lot of different kinds of craft beer, and whenever I come to a large city, I always go to a store and buy cool beer, and I just bought one of the Firestone Barrel series. I think it's the Blanc. It's aged in white wine barrels, and I'm really excited about it. It's going to be really fun. But as far as a go-to beer goes, I drink a lot of the brown, and I drink a lot of the IPA at Blacktooth when I'm home.
Okay. One last thing, sorry. Would it be possible to get some of the 1413 available in Montana?
1314? Yeah, I'm trying to think. You guys are in Great Falls?
Right. Eagle distributing.
Eagle Beverage.
Or beverage, right?
Yeah, I can't remember if they typically order it or not, but we are about to release another vintage of it, and we have some 2019 left if they'd like it. I mean, if they want it, even if they just want a few cases, we'd be happy to send it out.
Nice. That'd be fun.
Yeah, it'd be great. So just last year we moved them into 16-ounce cans. They were in bombers, which are a little bit harder to sell because it's hard for one person to attack a bomber. So we put them in 16-ounce cans. They're a little easier to sell now.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we'll call that a day, huh? Thank you very much.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you. Thanks,
nice
you guys
you.
You too. Enjoy the event. Enjoy the beer, and thanks for featuring Blacktooth.
You bet.
You're
See you
welcome.
later.
Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.